Hey, good morning. Good morning. Buying land. So, buying cleared land versus wooded land in the Ozarks. So, if you followed me for a while on Duncan Smith in the Sticks, here's the deal, Steve. In 1970, diesel fuel was cheap. D5 dozers were running through this country in mass quantities because Missouri, South Central Missouri, is the #2 grass hay producer. So those D5 dozers came in, cleaned out all the woods because this was woods, a lot of it, most of it. So I've seen the dozer decks. I've got a farm with a bunch of dozer decks that Rod Smith pushed up and tried to keep the dirt out of them so that he could burn them. Still got a few that he kept pushing up. And marginal land was cheap, 40, 50, 100, 200, 300 bucks an acre going, through the 80s. So when a buyer comes in and says, well, I want a woodlot, I'm just going to clear it. Well, there is some good places that you could clear. If it's got white oaks and walnuts, it's well-drained soil. It's probably got a pretty decent, this much topsoil. You're right, 1.5 inches. It's the Ozarks. But where the good ground is, and where if you've got this fascination with growing food and grazing livestock, and we'll not get into that fantasy. Let me tell you, it's a beautiful life, and that is true. But blood, sweat, and tears is there's a lot of that, and the tears are real and big. So anyway, back to the woodlot, and I want it cheap. I'll clear it. Well, back to the 1970s when those operators, and they were hillbillies, but let me tell you, they were smart and they were good operators. When that blade, they could tell by the purr of that diesel cat engine, and they could tell when they started to get into marginal ground. And land was so cheap, they were trying to give the owner the best bang for the buck. So there was no need in spending hours in marginal ground when he probably has a vast land holding and needed to, push the edges on it. Now, is it different now that land is higher and maybe marginal ground is probably, there's a chance that you could go ahead and clean it and put it back in grass, and it, just to be straight about it, it's all for the glory of fescue. So you've got to run that. Okay, natives. It's all for the glory of natives, which don't get me angry. But it's all for the glory of grass, which you've got to run through a cow, which is a high risk, high management. Just everything's got to be ultra, high rainfall, great environmental conditions. Anyway, so clearing that marginal ground, I would say, is probably laughable anyway. But you're writing the check. So that's a great idea. I'll tell you what I think, and you follow me, you'll milk cows for 30 years, drive a 12 passenger van, and five kids that are not farming. So there's a reason for that. They're great humans. They're raising great families, and they're steppers, and the farm produced that. So there is that. So I'm not discounting that, but if you think that you're going to make some money on the farm, go head on. It's a pretty well glorified hobby. But anyway, I hate to be a Debbie Downer. So that just buy cleared land. If you want 10, 20, 30 acres, if you want privacy, if you want access, if you want power, on the cheap end, it's going to be $6,500 per acre, 10 acres. But there again, if you're talking 10 acres, 6,000 versus 10,000 is $4,000. So on 6 acres is $24,000. So everybody gets hung up on the per acre price. And if it's 1,000 acres, yeah, I get it. But if it's 10 and it's good and it's what you want, give them their money and whistle Dixie as you smoke a ham. Okay, 5 minutes and 15 seconds of just a random splash with Duncan Smith in the sticks. I sell real estate in South Central Missouri. If you get any value of this, like, subscribe, comment, push that content. I get it. It's a little random. But I get a lot of calls of, well, I'm in this real estate deal and things just didn't quite. And I'm like, okay. A lot of times it's nobody's fault. It's just a real estate deal. But a lot of times it's like, well, me, I'd like to feed my family too. Maybe you should hire me. But I just tell them in a nice tone what I think and what I would have tried to do. But I tell them here, ultimately, I don't know the details of your deal, and I don't know the conversations that you had. I'm hearing one side of the story, and it's usually better from the person that's telling you at the time. The other side, I'm not calling to get that. So, disclaimer, when you call me about a real estate deal that's going south, there's so many moving mechanisms, and people want to point the finger pretty quick, but at a lot of times you have to point it right back, probably right in here. Okay. Yeah, it was my fault. Okay, Duncan Smith in the sticks. Like and subscribe. I'm going to try to get this one on CapCut and do a better profile pic. But anyway, I've successfully lost more subscribers than I've gained in the last 3 or 4 weeks. So I wonder who's to blame for that. Anyway, picking it up. Have a good day. Over now.